YouTube. So our next question is, which institutions can I apply at if I'm still completing my honours via Unisa and do not have any interim results? I find that most institutions want applicants to have a completed honours degree.
Yeah, I do think they want their completed degree, your completed results, but I suppose you can just apply everywhere, but knowing it is your final mark, because they do look at the aggregate. So you've got to do your honours anyway. So you would have your BA results. And I don't know, I think that would depend on every institution. So if you maybe possibly an older, more mature learner who's got a lot of experience, it may be slightly different to somebody who's just busy completing their honours straight from their first degree. So I do think it'll depend on every institution. I personally ended up having to take a gap between completing my honours because I didn't have the results yet. So I think it's just apply at institutions, but always, I think with psychology, what it teaches you, you've always got to have a backup plan. You've got to have plan A, B, and C.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Our next question, is there a cutoff age for master's selections?
Okay, not that I'm aware of. I do think sometimes the older, more mature student brings a different perspective, and they've also been able to, remember I said in the selection process can sometimes be incredibly harsh. So the more mature person, the more grounded individual is often better at dealing with that selection process, because it can really be a tough process. I personally only did my master's when I was in my 40s, after having done my undergrad at Unisa. So I think your profile, and if it fits the needs of our country, because I think there's a greater need now for people to be speaking more of our indigenous languages, somebody speaking Xhosa, as opposed to this profile of English speaking only. So it depends on the profile that you bring into the table as well. But I don't think a university is going to invest in you if you're 60, because what is the sort of comeback that you're going to bring to the country? But 40s, 50s, I don't know. Sipho, do you think there's a cutoff?
Absolutely not. There's no cutoff. There has been a general misconception that younger people won't get in.
Oh no.
You know, and a lot of young people, which sort of doubles back on the honors thing. There is a preference for people to have experience, and I myself, till this day, and I know a lot of students might have heard this, where they keep saying life experience, life experience, life experience, and nobody really knows what life experience is, and that's where the subjectivity, I think, of the selectors comes into play, about what are they sort of valuing around life experience, and what do they mean about that. So I would encourage people, whether you're in honors, whether you did your honors degree 10 years ago, whatever it is, to apply, because the selection deals with a range of issues and a range of things, and the age thing, because you can be 60 and be deemed not to be emotionally mature for the training. You can be 24 and be deemed to be emotionally mature for the course. So the age thing, I know this has been a big thing. It's part of the reason why I had a 2-year gap between my honors and my masters, because everybody kept saying, well, you need to be older. And if I'd listened to everybody, I would have actually only applied for my master's this year when I was 30, because people thought 30 was the best age. It's not true. It's not true. Apply, because then at least you might get some measure of feedback that allows you to sort of work on what needs to be worked on and reapply again. So, so age cutoff, no, there isn't. But like you're saying, Sharon, if you're 65, and there's a 29-year-old or 25-year-old. It's a thing about 65, how long can you work, you know? It's those kinds of challenges.
Yeah, but what you bring to the selection panel is important, and also how trainable you are. You're going to get a 24-year-old that's not trainable and a 65-year-old that is completely trainable. So there's this individual uniqueness to everything, and every time you go to the selection and you go through that experience, it just adds to your own growth and your own sort of wealth of knowledge of how to do this the next time.
Sipho and Sharon, you both touched on reapplying. So you apply for M1, it doesn't work out, you reapply next year. A lot of students that I've spoken to made the assumption that it would look bad to not make M1 this year, not make selection, and to reapply again the year after. They thought that there was no point doing that, because not getting in this year would automatically mean that they wouldn't get in next year. Is there any truth to that whatsoever?
No, I don't think so at all, because it depends on the strength of the group that you're applying with. For example, I was on the selection panel for the registered counselors, and there were so many really, really excellent candidates that didn't get in purely because we had our limited numbers. So if you're going up with a very, very strong group, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It just means that the pool is just too big that we've got to pick from. So try again next year. And if you're not selected the first year, do things that show your dedication to the profession, enrich the reach out that you do to people, so that the next time around, because if you get selected to come for the interview, you've already got something to give. But it's the pool may just be too strong your particular year. I know the year I'd applied, the academic cutoff mark was 73%. If you'd got less than 73%, you didn't get to do the interviews even, because I think they just had such a strong academic application pool. So no, I don't think you give up. My one lecturer, I think, had applied 3 or 4 times before she was selected as a counselling psychologist. So that's my experience. If you absolutely dedicated and this what you want, carry on pursuing, but have plans A, B, C, and D even if necessary, because you might have to you go in, the back door's closed, the front door's closed, you might have to climb through a window, but get there. Yeah, if that's what you want.
Thank you so much. Sipho, is there anything else you would like to add to that?
No, I think, and I understand why people are not willing to reapply. Actually, it's the emotional toll that selection, that you go through in selection. It is an emotionally daunting thing. I have not forgotten that experience. So I think reapplying is not a bad thing. But reapplying without having made necessary adjustments, I think, just puts you in a really difficult position, because you're going to keep getting the same answer, you know. So it is important to reapply. And if it's not working out, sometimes the long route is not a bad route at all, to go the area of research. I know some people who wanted to be psychologists, therapists, to do clinical counseling educational, but were not, ended up in research, and they were like, thank goodness, because this is exactly what I wanted to do, because they felt like they had less constraints in research and they were able to actually do the work that they wanted to do all along. So I think this is important to know that reapplying is not a bad thing. Reapplying without making necessary adjustments might not be good for you because of the emotional toll this whole selection process can take on people.
Sipho, and on that point, our final question is discussing master's applications. What can a student do to prepare for master's applications?
I mean, go and look. I mean, I think I'll be scolded if I don't say this. Our counseling application at UJ is open. Go onto the UJ, go onto all the institutions' websites, look at what they're asking you to do. I know they asked for, somebody I just saw was asking for life story, or just tell the truth. Because when I'm reading your life story, I can tell when you are, telling me a Bonnie and Clyde story here. Tell the truth, be honest, as far as possible, and highlight the things that are important to you. I mean, institutions do give a guidance of what they want from the life story. They're not sort of they're not throwing everything out in the air. So I think applications, some institutions have opened, some have closed, but I know at UJ, ours is open until, they're going to kill me, until June or end of this month. Just go on the website and look, please.
Can I also just add, when you're writing that life story, and I've actually interviewed or had sessions with a number of people who have applied, the one thing that throws you out is when you become defensive about anything that you've written down. So as much as you tell your life story, you've got to know that those are the sore points that you're exposing. Have you dealt with them? Sipho was saying that the selection process is emotionally daunting. It is not a patch on what actually happens when you start working, particularly as a counseling psychologist, when I'm on the ground and I'm in the community. The heartache, and it is really, your heart is sore when you working with people, and you can't change their circumstances. All you can do as a counseling psychologist, I've got to change their perspective on their lives. So your heart is going to be sore. If you are completely crushed by the selection process, then maybe this is not actually the right profession for you. You may want to do it. Your heart may be there, but you will not be able to survive it. So if you're not selected, go back, do homework. If you've written your life story, be prepared for them to actually scratch at those things that you've put there, and own it. Own whatever you've written there, and not be defensive or talk about it lightly.
Thank you so much, Sharon and Sipho. And what you've just covered is the life story. That was our last question. It is shortly after 3 o'clock. So I'd like to give a very special thank you to Sipho, who is out somewhere, nowhere near Wi-Fi. Thank you, Sipho, so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Sharon. Sipho and Sharon and Unisa are executive committee members of the South African Association of Counselling Psychologists. And if you didn't know this, you may join 𝑠𝐴𝐴𝑐𝑃 as a student. There is a student registration category for the 𝑠𝐴𝐴𝑐𝑃. So if you're considering counseling psychology, I strongly recommend joining the 𝑠𝐴𝐴𝑐𝑃. I'm not quite sure what the student fee is, but it's way under 100 Rand, I think. If you have any other questions, I'm typing my email address into the chat. Send me your questions. It's a long email address, I know. I get that a lot. I will post the recordings on our YouTube channel, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So I'll post those links. Please do go through the recordings again and refer back to them. It is a lot of information. So I think these recordings will definitely be beneficial. And again, thank you to our participants for joining us and for your wonderful questions. And thank you to Sharon and Sipho and Unisa so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And take care, everyone.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.